Good afternoon. Today we will continue to study about the subordinating conjunction. The fifth sort of the subordinating conjunction is the pronoun what. We've studied about the pronoun what as the interrogative pronoun to start an interrogative clause. But the speaker who intends to link the interrogative clause as the subordinate clause can link the subordinate clause to the main clause, and in this case the pronoun what is the name, the term of the pronoun what becomes the subordinating conjunction what from the interrogative pronoun what. The main reason, the key factor that the speaker links the subordinate clause to the main clause from the interrogative clause is that the speaker does not have the inquisitive intent on the object or subject indicated by the interrogative pronoun what in the interrogative clause. And the speaker finds, secondly, the speaker finds that the subject or object, which is not a person, indicated by the pronoun what in the interrogative clause is the same as one of the subject or object in the main clause. So these two reasons can be the key factors to link the interrogative clause as the subordinate clause to the main clause. Let's read out the explanation one by one. The speaker applies the pronoun what as a subordinating conjunction to indicate the subject or object described in the subordinate clause as a subject or an object in the main clause. There is a conference about the compatibility. The compatibility of a subordinate clause as an indication or a description linked by a pronoun who, whose, and which as a subordinating conjunction. Let's read out the explanation together. The pronoun who replaces a part of the general nouns and proper nouns to indicate a person. After the speaker states the noun to indicate a person as the precedent to practice the role as the subject or an object in the main clause, the speaker can apply the pronoun who as a subordinating conjunction to indicate the same subject or object as the precedent. And in this explanation, the grammatical term precedent is introduced. This means that the speaker intends to apply the subordinate clause as the explanation, as the description for the precedent in the main clause. The speaker states the exact word as the precedent. The speaker does not state the subordinate clause as an indication because the precedent gives us more exact information about the object or the subject. And what the subordinate clause does is to give the listeners details about the precedent. So this can be the era of the subordinate clause applied as a description, because we've studied about the subordinate clause applied only as an indication. Let's read the explanation together. Because the number of nouns to indicate a person is relatively less than the number of nouns to indicate an object except a person, the speaker states the precedent to clarify the subject or object ahead of the pronoun who. This can be the reason why the speaker gives us the precedent. The speaker can apply the pronoun who as a subordinating conjunction to start a subordinate clause that has the trait as an adjective. One of the descriptions to specify the subject or object that the pronoun who indicates with a description in the subordinate clause. Because the pronoun who and the precedent indicate the same person, the speaker can enlarge the range of statement about the person indicated by the precedent in the subordinate clause with a form of a statement with a subject and a verb. That can be the advantage of stating the subordinate clause as a description for the precedent. The pronoun whose indicates an object that belongs to a subject. The speaker applies the pronoun whose as a subordinating conjunction that has the trait of the possessive determiner to indicate the same subject or object as the precedent. As we studied about the pronoun who with the precedent in the main clause, and in this explanation we study that the pronoun whose can be applied as a description for the precedent while indicating the same subject for an object that belongs to the precedent. So we can say that the precedent and the possessive determiner whose, we can say that the relative possessive determiner whose indicates the same subject, and the whole subordinate clause becomes the description for the precedent, that is the owner of the object described by the relative possessive determiner. We will study it with some examples. The speaker can discern the precedent to clarify the subject of the belonging and the possessive determiner whose as a subordinating conjunction to indicate the same subject of belonging from the object that belongs to the subject indicated by the precedent and state the subordinate clause. Let me give you an example briefly. I see a man whose son is smart. In this sentence, the phrase of the general noun, a man, is the precedent, and whose as the relative possessive determiner indicates the same person as a man. And the relative possessive determiner whose describes the subject of the subordinate clause, son, whose son, and whose son reveals that the son, the subject of the subordinate clause, belongs to the precedent. The speaker, we studied about this explanation, and let's go to the next page. So the subordinate clause linked by the subordinating conjunction whose that has the trait as a possessive determiner is a description about belonging of the subject indicated by the precedent. Whose son is smart? This is the subordinate clause, and the linkage by the related possessive determiner whose reveals that the son belongs to a man in the main clause, the precedent. The pronoun what indicates the vast range of the subject or object, because the pronoun what indicates every subject or object except the subject or object indicated by the pronoun who, from the perspective that the pronoun what solely indicates a subject or an object that is independent. From this explanation, I wanted to describe that what is not applied as a subordinating conjunction to link the subordinate clause as a description. The subordinate clause linked by the pronoun what is only applied as an indication. And this explanation is about the reason why the speaker does not apply the subordinate clause linked by the pronoun what as a description for the precedent. The speaker does not give any precedent in the main clause because the speaker intends to indicate a subject or an object with the pronoun what, while the speaker gives an explanation of the subject or object in a subordinate clause. It's not about an indication. Like, we can say something like this: I want to have something that you like. I don't know what the indefinite pronoun something indicates, but we just know. The speaker only knows that something is liked by the listeners. We can know about the descriptive intent of the speaker, and this way of explanation goes to the pronoun what in the same way. The speaker does not intend to indicate a subject or an object that is not a person with the noun. The speaker intends to indicate, instead, the speaker indicates the subject or object with the pronoun what and the descriptive portion in the subordinate clause. The speaker applies the pronoun what as a subordinating conjunction to clarify the subject or object that the speaker intends to indicate from the description in the subordinate clause rather than the direct indication. The speaker intends to avoid the direct indication. This can be the reason why the speaker does not apply the precedent for the pronoun what. The subordinate clause, which includes the pronoun what as a subordinating conjunction, and the description about the indicated subject or object by the pronoun what, only has the trait as a pronoun as a whole. The pronoun which originates from the compound of the two words, the pronoun who to indicate a person, and the word like, that has the trait as an adjective or an adverb. The pronoun which is able to link the subordinate clause as an indication or a description with the precedent in the main clause. The range of the subject or the range of subject or object indicated by the interrogative pronoun which and the pronoun which applied as a subordinating conjunction to link the subordinate clause that has the trait as the pronoun to the main clause is determined by the speaker because the range is discerned in the conversation with the speaker irrelevant to the origin of the word which. The pronoun which is as a subordinating conjunction that links the subordinate clause that has the trait as an adjective to the main clause indicates the same subject or object as the precedent, which is not a person. This can be understood as the specialization. The speaker indicates the precedent, that is a person, with a subordinating conjunction, who. Even though the origin of the word which is about a person and a subject or an object that is close to a person. The speaker intends to separate and specialize to indicate something that is not a person with the pronoun which in linking the subordinate clause to the main clause. The speaker indicates the subject or object that is discerned from the exclusion of the subject or object as a person with the precedent and the pronoun which to link the subordinate clause as an adjective to the main clause. There is another conference. The title of the conference is this: to transform an interrogative clause with the interrogative pronoun what into a declarative subordinate clause and link the subordinate clause to the main clause. Yeah, there is an example. The teacher told us what we love. The speaker indicates the direct object that is conveyed, the definition of the transitive verb told to the indirect object us, from the subject the teacher with the subordinate clause what we love, linked to the main clause by the pronoun what as the subordinating conjunction. The speaker states the direct object with a subordinate clause instead of a word. The pronoun what applied as a subordinating conjunction in the subordinate clause indicates the object described as being conveyed. The definition of the transitive verb love from the subject to include the speaker. And as we understand that the subordinate clause has the trait as an indication, we can say that this subordinate clause has the role as the direct object in the main clause, and we can analyze the subordinate clause as well. In the subordinate clause, we can find that the object indicated by the pronoun what is the object of the transitive verb love to receive the definition from the subject. So we can say that the pronoun what has the role of the object in the subordinate clause as well. And this example this example can be separated into this way. Before the speaker because the speaker intends to the speaker still has the inquisitive intent on the object indicated by the interrogative pronoun what. The speaker links the subordinate clause what we love to the main clause with the pronoun what as the subordinating conjunction because the object of the transitive verb love indicated by the interrogative pronoun what corresponds with the object indicated by the phrase of the noun of story. And there are 2 more examples. We will study about these in the next class. Thank you for watching.